Today's show, yeah, it's going to be a review of the new Technics SL-1300G. This is big news, especially for me, for a couple of reasons. Because I've been waiting for this turntable or something like this turntable from Technics for years. I've been looking forward to a Technics turntable, a high-end audiophile-grade turntable from Technics that did not look like a DJ turntable. This one, the 1300G, does not look like a DJ turntable. Doesn't have the pitch slider, doesn't have the strobe thing on the platter, doesn't have those things that mark it as, yeah, that's a DJ turntable. This one, no, this is a clean design, clean break from all that. It still definitely looks like a Technics, but it doesn't look like a DJ turntable. And for that, I am very happy. Now, I own a Technics SL-1200G, and I love everything about it except that it looks like a DJ turntable. So I have a personal stake in today's episode. But there are significant differences between these two turntables beyond what you see on the surface. First of all, the good news is the 1300G is $1,000 less expensive than the SL-1200G. The 1200G is $4,300, and the 1300G is $3,300. $1,000 difference in price. So what's really going on there? Well, first of all, I'll do the easy stuff first. The platter. Now they both feature die-cast aluminum platters with a 2mm brass, let's say, top surface to them. Platters weigh the same, 8 pounds each. But the turntables themselves, well, the SL-1300G weighs 28.6 pounds, and the SL-1200G weighs 40 pounds. That is pretty significant difference. So yeah, the 1200G feels more solidly put together. When I tap my finger, oh, by the way, the top surface of the SL-1300G is die-cast aluminum. It's very impressive. But when I tap it with my finger, as I'm going to show you right now, it sounds a bit hollow and resonant. Here's the tapping sound. And then when I tap in the same place on the SL-1200G, it just goes thunk. It's a deader sound because it has more absorption, more absorptive material inside the base of the turntable. Now, does this make any difference when you're playing records? Because you're not going to be tapping them when you play records? No. But the thing is, in terms of the feel and the solidity of the turntable, the SL-1200G definitely feels better built, to be blunt about it. Now, there are other subtle differences. The tone arms are very similar, but the SL-1200G has a magnesium arm tube. The SL-1300G has an aluminum arm tube. The cueing in both turntables is silky smooth, except the feel of the tone arm lever on the 1300G just feels different. It doesn't feel as good in my hand as the 1200G's cueing lever. The next one is a biggie for me because Technics has rethought the way they're setting up the vertical tracking angle adjustment for their tone arms. And that's used so you can make the arm tube parallel to the platter, as opposed to having a little higher or a little lower. Now, this arm has greater adjustment to go down further. So with a lot of cartridges, you can make the arm, the tone arm tube parallel to the record, where on the 1200G, it was always a little bit too high. It's a small detail, I'm not saying it's the end of the world difference, but finally they addressed that issue. The SL-1300G has a new motor and a new power supply and speed regulation system compared to the last new model that came from Technics, the SL-1200G R2, last year's model, the one that came out in 2023. I never used dust covers on my turntables, but anyway, this one, the 1300G, definitely does come with a dust cover. Now, the SL-1300G is a 3-speed turntable. It plays 33, 45, and for you people who are into 78 RPM records, yes, this one will play 78s. The tone arm cable included with the SL-1300G is entry level. It's cheap. It's not befitting the use with this turntable. Now, I did try it out. Sounds perfectly fine. But when I upgraded to Cardus interconnect cables, which you plug in on the back of the turntable, it's a significant upgrade. And anybody buying a turntable like this for $3,300, treat yourself, get better interconnect cables, and they just plug in right on the back of the table. Over the course of this review, I used 2 different cartridges, a high-end moving coil, the Lyra Delos that sells for around, should have checked, $2,000, and then a more affordable alternative, the Grado Platinum 3, which is called a moving iron cartridge, but in terms of how you use it, it functions just like a moving magnet. And that cartridge, which I absolutely love, by the way, the Grado, sells for $400. It is made not very far from me here in Brooklyn. And of course, I was using the same cartridge on the 1200G and the 1300G when I was doing these comparisons. I would just move the cartridge between the 2 tables. It took less than a minute to do that. I used the same phono preamp for both turntables, the PowerSound JC3 Plus. Now, I just want to take a little detour right now and remind everybody that before I bought the Technics SL-1200G, I owned a very expensive British belt drive turntable, the SME Model 15, and it had an SME 5 arm. That was over $20,000. And when I did the 1200G review, I found myself drawn to the 1200G. I was using the 1200G a lot more than the SME, and they were next to each other. And I thought, that's really interesting. And this went on and on and on. And eventually I said, you know what? I'm just going to buy the 1200G and sell the SME. And I did. And I never regretted it. Matter of fact, I am so glad I did it, because the difference in the way I was just enjoying playing records at home, for me, not for reviews, was huge. I found myself playing much more vinyl than I did when I owned the SME. And I owned the SME for 5 or 6 years. And I've been buying so much more vinyl, spurred on by the 1200G, which is not what I expected. And before I had the SME turntable, belt drive, I had a VPI Classic turntable. That was also belt drive. And before that, I had a Linn LP12 belt drive. And now that I have made, let's say, the switch to direct drive with this Technics, I would never, ever, ever go back to belt drive. I mean, never say never. But I could just say the enjoyment level of playing records with this Technics turntable, it just caught me by complete surprise. You know, as for my early impressions of listening to the SL-1300G without doing a comparison to the 1200G, my early impressions were, yes, I know this sound. It is very similar to the SL-1200G. But as I listened more, and I kept postponing those, doing the comparisons, I kept thinking, yeah, low-level detail and resolution, excellent. Timing and rhythm and all that, yeah, both turntables excel at that sort of thing. When you listen to rock music or jazz, you just feel the momentum. You feel the rhythm that the band is laying down. These tables excel at that. You know, I got to say, I've been playing a lot of the Rolling Stones' earliest records, you know, early 60s records, their first few, a lot lately, because they really had their act together. What a band they were, so tight. Interesting rhythm things going on. Keith is all there. Mick is fully formed right out of the gate. The very first album, he was an incredible vocalist. And the SL-1300G was bringing their music to life. 60 years old. This music is 60 years old, and it's blowing me away. But it's not the best quality recording. So for that, I pushed the clock ahead a bit, and I went to Keith Richards' first solo album. And it's probably his best. It's the raw, it has this raw power that I absolutely love. And I'm playing it on the 1300G, And it had this solidity to it, this weight to it, this power that I really, really liked. You know, this is good stuff. But then when I moved over to the SL-1200G, there was more res, especially in the quieter details. I could hear into the mix better. The spaces between the instruments was better. It just felt, it had more life to it, is what I'm saying. It sounded like a more powerful sounding turntable to me. It was even more apparent when I played this long forgotten album, forgotten by me and many other people, All This and World War II. And this is a movie soundtrack, and it's all Beatles songs. It's kind of like Across the Universe movie, but years earlier. This is from 1976. I looked around, I couldn't find it streaming on Qobuz or Tidal, maybe Spotify has it. Anyway, there's huge stars. There's Elton John and great people playing on this record, and the London Philharmonic. Now normally that kind of like sludges things up, but not in this case. It really just gave the arrangements of these Beatles songs so much more room to move, and it's a really dynamic recording. I picked this up for $1 like 20 years ago because nobody cares about this album, but now it's one of those forgotten gems. I forgot about it, and now I'm playing the hell out of it because it's so good. And this turntable, the SL-1300G, was definitely pulling the music from the grooves. And again, I'm sorry, the 1200G just did more of that. I mean, the 1300G is the little brother. Let's put it that way. It's good, it's really good, but I'm not tempted to sell my 1200G to get a 1300G. That's for sure. So this album, Out of the Cool, by Gil Evans, is one of my all-time favorite jazz records. It's on the Impulse label. It's recorded by Rudy Van Gelder, who you usually hear on Blue Note. I think his work on this record is way better than any Blue Note I've ever heard. That's a big group. This is a gatefold album, and on the inside there, you can see the arrangement of all the musicians. So there's Elvin Jones on drums, Ron Carter on bass, Gil Evans on piano, a lot of brass. This is a high energy recording, but don't worry, it's not free jazz. It's not that sort of thing. It's more like Ellington, the next level. It's after Ellington. It's more modern sounding than Ellington's big band music. And music feels to me like it's flying. It has this forward energy. You just feel the energy bouncing around in the studio. I'm getting goosebumps just telling you about it. It's that good. And I'm playing it first on the SL-1200G, and it's just filling my room. It is just stunning. It's one of those, I have no complaints. It's just that good. And I switched over to the 1300G, and then what happened, it's really interesting, everything sounded closer. All the instruments sounded closer, more immediate, more like, there they are, right there. So the focus was a little better, but it sounded smaller. The band, this collection of musicians playing and listening to each other in real time and making this incredible music in 1960, by the way, I forget to mention that. There's less of that. It feels more like a recording over the SL-1300G, sorry for the cliche here, and more like music over the 1200G. That's the way it sounded to me. And now let's get right to, so Steve, what do you really think of the Technics SL-1300G? Well, I'm so happy it doesn't look like a DJ turntable. That's something. That's meaningful to me. But to be blunt, and you probably know this already, I'm not tempted to sell my 1200G to get the 1300G. I'm glad it's there. I'm glad it's $1,000 less. So if you couldn't quite swing $4,300 for the 1200G, maybe you can get to $3,300 for the SL-1300G. And yeah, it looks great. It's a Technics turntable. It does a lot of the things that I want to hear from this kind of turntable. But if you could swing the extra money, I would recommend getting the SL-1200G. And with that, I could say, let's move on to, yes, you know it, you love it, the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Hey, this is Gnome's system. His speakers are Magnepan 1.7s, the sub Velodyne 810, power amp B&K EX422 Sonata, the preamp Shit Saga Plus. There's an equalizer in there. That's a Technics SH-8017, phono preamp Bellari VP549. DVD player, also for CDs, that's an Onkyo DV S501. The DAC is a Shit Madi Plus streamer, WIM Mini, and the turntable is a Fluence RT82 with an Audiophiliac 10M cartridge. Thank you, no. All right, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg. I am the Audiophiliac, and I like my job. I really do. Now, this channel is supported with commercials, of course, but also with my patrons. And I have started a new program a couple of months ago where I'm making videos just for patrons that are not shown here on the YouTube channel. So if that piques your interest enough that you might want to join my Patreon, please do so. The address is on the screen right now. And by the way, if you want to just subscribe to this channel, please do, and give me a thumbs up if you think I deserve it. And with that, I can say my work here is at last complete. Thank you so much for watching, and I truly do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.